Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Let's do a test. Can you hear me? Yes, you can. Before we even start with the panel, let's just take a moment and acknowledge Democracy for All, the conference, and the organizers, and this amazing venue. Let's just kind of clap our hands for it. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I think this is my third time here, I think, and it's just great job to everyone. My hat goes off to all of you, and we'll now start our panel. Marco, you're here.
I am.
Virtually, I miss you, buddy.
Okay, I don't think this is fair. My head is way bigger than everybody else's.
My voice is way bigger than yours, so it's okay.
Okay,
all
that's
right.
Cool.
So our panel is, by the way, I'm just a stand-up kind of guy, so I may stand up. We'll see how this goes. Are we ready for self-sovereignty? I think we'll do an introduction of our speakers first, our panelists first, and then we'll sort of dive in. I'm Gordon Einstein. I'm the founder of Crypto Law Partners. I am a blockchain and crypto attorney. Let's just kind of go down the row, and then we'll end up with Marco. You look like the Wizard of Oz, buddy. You're like dominating the screen. But let's say name, company, and tell us something interesting about you.
Okay, well, so I'm Jordi Bailina.
Actually, I will say that.
Yeah, I'm Jordi Bailina. I'm the founder of Hermes, recently merged with Polygon. So we are now Polygon Hermes. I'm also the founder of Ident3, and I've been working in the space for the last 5 years, defining protocols and helping, just a technical person, just pushing in the self-sovereign identity has been one of my passions for the last years.
Fantastic. Bit?
Yeah,
Your Highness, President.
My name is Vít Jedlička. I founded Liberland, which is a new country which is located between Croatia and Serbia. We've got some 700,000 people that applied for citizenship so far. And our biggest challenge is how to find that right balance between the self-sovereignty and also possibility to recover the keys and find the way to run the country on a blockchain. That's our biggest challenge that we're facing last couple of years. And I hope we will come up with the solution by the end of the year.
Maybe we'll come up with a solution on this panel.
Hopefully.
We'll see. Nacho, please.
Okay, good morning. Nacho Alamillo, working for a Catalan company, which is highly specialized in identity management. We are involved in a lot of projects, including projects for the European Commission. We are actually working in the governance framework for the European blockchain services infrastructure. And I am as well involved in standardization activities. Here I have some of my colleagues in the standardization bodies. So this is a good place to be. Thanks for this.
Marco, again, I miss you, but I'm happy to see you. Tell us about you.
I'm just wishing I had a visa. I'd be there. Missed you too, Gordon. Gordon and I, for everybody's understanding, we work together on a project exploring self-sovereignty, among other things. And I'm sure you'll be talking about that later, Gordon. So I'll leave that one to you. I'm basically a software engineer. Fell into blockchain about 6 years ago now, and I've been working across all sorts of projects, NFTs, designing and building actual layer 1s, layer 2 infrastructures, and I spend most of my time these days helping people understand what works, what doesn't, and what might work in the future with the right technology.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So panelists, very happy to have you here. There's an expression I like, which is explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. So self-sovereignty, huh? Just real concise version. What does that mean to you? Jordi, please.
Self-sovereignty, it's identity. When I mean identity is digital identity. You log in when you are doing a login, but right now you have identities that are identities from Facebook, identities from Twitter, identities. You use a different identity that belongs to some different company. The idea of a self-sovereign is just a simple protocol where you can have your own identity. Let's say like a Bitcoin, it's a public-private address. It's like would be a representation of an identity, and you can use this. You can use it as not only login but also credentials, or if you want claims between the people, and that's it. So for me, identity is just a simple protocol where the people can define identities, can define claims, which is statements that one identity do to the claims, and then proofs. You can prove that, for example, the government made the claim about me that I'm, for example, I'm an engineer, or have the license of hunting or whatever thing. And For me, self-sovereign identity is anybody can create an identity or as many identities as they want, and anybody can generate claims. And these two should be democratized. So it should not be a difference between a government or just a fake identity that somebody create. It's a claim, it's cryptographically provable and works as, so, and this is it. And this is the basic, it's a protocol. It's a basic layer, a protocol where you can build on top of that. It's not related to the ID card of states. It's not related to any applications of the identity. Identity is the bottom layer where you just public-private key, if you want, or even a little bit more complex, but public-private key, define claims, prove claims. That's it.
So, by the way, I like stirring up controversy, and we're just going to start right now. Fit, as a president of a sovereign country like Catalonia, see what I did there? Do you agree with what I would call that slightly reductionist version of what self-sovereignty is, or do you see it as inherently linked with the higher, more political layers or national layers? Like, what's your vision of it? Do you see it the same way?
Well, of course, there is a difference between self-sovereign identity and self-sovereignty. And what we are doing with Liberland is striving for the proper self-sovereignty, not just identity, right? So that's a bit of a difference there. And you know, I completely agree with you on the definition of that. It's just the basic infrastructure of public and private keys, where you can prove to anybody that it's you that hold the private key. What we are doing with Liberland is that we are trying to find again that middle ground between the you know, this self-sovereignty, complete self-sovereignty, but also some sort of control. So if a prime minister, for example, loses his private keys, there is a way to recover it. And we do have two ways to do it, actually. One way is that there is a system of trusted parties which you can choose, that together they will be able to recover your key. And the other way is that we do have a semi-centralized version of court system, which could also decide not about recovering the key itself, but basically about moving the assets from that key to some other address, which will make it possible. But
you're opening a whole door to the next round of questions.
Okay.
How do we manage this, and what compromises do we engage in? But I think I get your vision of what it is. Jordi, self-sovereignty to you. Explain it to a 5-year-old, or just copy and paste what he said.
Okay, let me play the lawyer. So I agree with what you explained from a technical perspective. I agree specifically from the perspective of the self-management of identifiers and of the cryptographic material associated to identifiers to perform authentication. This is a nice way to see identity. But identity is a very complex topic. So identity, for me, for instance, is what governments provide us with to be able to have a level of assurance about something. For instance, I have a degree in law. This is something which forms an identity attribute of nature. And if I want to have third parties recognizing the value of this identity attribute, which is my academic diploma, probably this is the result of a social process where the university has checked that I have a knowledge base, and then they get me a diploma. This diploma is an identity attribute which should be under my full control. In this sense, I fully concur with the idea of having self-sovereign identifiers. But the value of that is the level of assurance which is associated to the social process. Therefore, identity is a set of complex set of identity attributes which are provided by a number of companies and on governments, and we should be able to deal with that. Otherwise, we will have only the capability of authenticating ourselves before third parties, but without any level of assurance at all.
All right, Marco, lots of red meat for you, because I know this is your passion project. Sovereign identity.
No one answered no one answered the question. The question was, what is self-sovereignty? It's got nothing to do with identity.
You said you're not going to answer the question, or
no?
Or
I said no one answered it yet. Self-sovereignty is nothing to do.
I love you. Say what you think.
Self-sovereignty has nothing to do with identity. It has nothing to do with claims. It has nothing to do with any of that. It is the fact, if you have it, self-sovereignty is the fact that you are subject to no rule other than your own.
That's a punchline.
That's it. That's it. You said 5-year-old. There are no rules except for the rules you give yourself.
All right, so I was actually going to play off that in the next round, which is, does the word sovereign kind of implies independence or not being affected by anything else. And self-sovereign, I think the word self even re-emphasizes that point. I think your argument is sort of a technical layer, and then you can stack things on top of that. But it exists in order to stack things on top of it. Do you compromise the sovereignty or the control that the individual has once you start integrating it with government services? What do you gain that uniquely here? And take a stab.
Yeah, here is, I think he is start mentioning the difficulties of self-sovereign, because self-sovereign identity means in somehow you are responsible for your keys. You're responsible for your identity. Same way that in Bitcoin, you are responsible for your keys because you are holding.
Yeah.
No matter what, if you don't lose your keys, you will lose your money. And if you lose your keys, you will lose your money. But this is very much the same in self-sovereign identity. It has a lot of similarities. If you lose your keys, you can have a lot of trouble. So, self-sovereign means that you have the responsibility somehow to keep the identity. So the identity is yours. The keys are yours. And this is what makes the things different. Right now, for example, if you are using Facebook account, if we lose, we have some mechanism to recover, because at the end, Facebook, they have it's a central authority that they can decide to give you, to restore your identity or to do the things. In self-sovereign identity, the idea is that this is not possible by default because the keys are yours. And then is when comes the solutions and when comes somehow the difficulties. And here is where we're working very much in this key recovery and how we set up procedures for the people to keep this value that at the end is identity is your
Here's a
value.
natural question. Once you have, I presume, third-party key recovery services, aren't you losing a little bit of your sovereignty?
Somehow.
Aren't you somehow compromising it? I mean, it's secret, except that if they really need it, they can get it. Well, that's nice, because what I've seen repeatedly yet again and again is, the expression, don't worry, we're from the government. From the government, we're here to help.
Here the trick,
it's always like a joke.
Here the trick is if you can choose the recovery mechanism, and the recovery mechanism you should be able to choose. Maybe at the beginning you can decide that okay, the government can keep my keys or can keep my identity for me, and as far as it's an opt-in option, I could accept that the thing if it's something that I'm.
What if it's something? Sorry, I'm just going to go for it. What if it's something like, don't worry, you can keep your keys, but if you want to access the banking system, the roads, the hospitals, and our army, we encourage you to share with us. Are you going to use is that the kind of offer you're going to make to your citizens?
Well, it is a difficult thing to really compromise on, but we do have I think the key here is the transparency. So when the government would go for it and they would, for example, confiscate some assets that would be on that identity, it must be a very transparent and preferably also on-chain system. That's what we're building. But governments are about using force against its own citizens that misbehave, right? It's
a monopoly on the legitimate use of organized violence.
Yes, exactly. That's the right definition. So in that sense, what we're doing is also there is a transparent control over who's got, for example, citizenship NFT on his address. That's something that the courts and in a very transparent and very organized way can take, for example, away from its citizen in extreme cases, right? But also the same system can be used for the recovery of the assets that would be lost on that particular address. And we were thinking about it for a long time, and we couldn't come up with better solution that the courts will be able to basically manipulate the balances of staked merits, which is our token, and that are tied to citizenship as well as to reputation, as well as can be used for punishment if somebody doesn't, for example, compensate a third party for some damages, etc.
Interesting. I mean, and I think it's important as we're working towards sovereignty and democracy to realize we want, the standard isn't perfection. The standard is it better than what we have now? And maybe it is. When you say transparency, if someone puts a gun to my head and says, give me 10 euros or you're dead, they're being very transparent.
Yeah.
So I appreciate them being honest, and I want to hug them for that, but it's not quite the system we want. But maybe it's better than the one we have now when it's on a government layout, just seeing exactly how things are being decided or how sovereignty and wealth is being transferred back and forth. Jordi, you have practical experience working I think on the European blockchain project.
Well, I'm one of the
It's
experts.
natural.
maybe-
Just I'm Jordi, he's
I am-
natural.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Geez, Jordi, you have stolen my identity. You have to give my identity to
I got so excited, I just lost control. So please,
So I think that we are mixing two different layers, honestly. So the definition about the original definition or discussion about SSI was related to the idea that you should have a human right to exist on the internet without depending on anyone. So this is again about identifiers. When we talk about identities, there are a big lot more stuff in there. So for instance, again, my diploma is is a part of my identity. And the question is that I should not depend on anyone to be able to share my diploma. So for this, what we really do need is to have technology, but also an assurance system that ensures that we are able to exist without any third-party dependency. In this sense, we're moving toward clearly a decentralized identity management space, where decentralized means as opposed to Facebook's centralized approach, for instance. But then we still need some warranties. For instance, it is very difficult for me to believe that I will design my own microchips, I will build my own mobile phones, and I will build my own wallets. So this is something that I do not believe is going to happen if we need consumers to do that. It is too difficult. For this reason, I believe that the proposal that has been presented by European Commission, which is called eIDAS2, that says that member states should be obliged to issue a digital identity wallet with a high level of assurance to ensure that citizens are able to create their own self-sovereign identifiers is the right approach. Then on top of that, we can discuss about getting different types of credentials and identity attributes with different levels of assurance and having full control over the sharing of this identity. This is the right balanced approach where member states, for instance, in the European Union will play a key role, but as well, we will have private companies and other people being able to produce this decentralized based identity management approach, which is what is really the key discussion right now in a regulated environment.
interesting. Marco, I know you're chomping at the bit here. Let me frame it a little bit. If I think I
We
saw
don't
you-
have the hours.
Again?
We don't have the hours it will take to
Oh, dude,
plumb all of that.
let me add in there. Is there a biological component to self-sovereign identity and key recovery, or do we need to go to third parties and then just say what you were going to say?
The minute you rely on a government, you're no longer self-sovereign. And that could be any government. That could be the UN. That's a government. The choice to become less than self-sovereign is personal, right? You can choose to be a member of Liberland, so a citizen of Liberland. You can choose to be a citizen of nowhere. Technically, it's tricky, but you can do it. It also makes it travel very tricky. However, that's part of the control systems that are built into this monopoly on identity. I remember, let's be very clear here. Identity has only been around for about 100 years. I mean, people know the word identity and what identity means, but the actual general social concept of carrying around a piece of paper that proves who you are, less than 100 years old. We could throw it away and it wouldn't throw us back that far. So when we talk about self-sovereignty, it's about the concept that you rely on no one but your own choices. And your rules are made up by you as you go along. Now, your rules were always going to be governed by your environment. It's probably not a good idea to walk 3 hours a day naked in the Sahara Desert. Not good for you. Same reason it's probably not a good idea to try to swim 7 to 10 miles the first time you go swimming. These are rules you build because they're rational rules about the laws of physics and the reality in which you exist. But everything that we've sort of taken for granted today, the stuff that we, I'm not an engineer, I'm not going to build my own cell phone, I'm not going to write my own software, that kind of thing. You can't do it alone. No one can do everything alone. That's one of the fundamental flaws with humans. If we could do everything alone, we'd go off and make our own universes. We have to work together. But how we work together should be our choice, not enforced by tradition, not enforced by pseudo collectives, which is what I like to call nation states. They were originally formed with a really good idea. Hey, let's band together and protect ourselves from the Romans or whatever. But it went horribly awry when people decided that the state really deserved to exist on its own and didn't require constant and continuous validation from the people. Democracy is an attempt at that, but very poorly executed at this point in time. We might improve on it, and that'd be awesome. When a country becomes a DAO, which is a collective that is self-sovereign in and of itself, and is ideally composed of many self-sovereign entities, then that DAO as a self-sovereign entity could make a set of decisions and create a set of rules around what life should be for the members of this, and then
Marco,
interact
let
with
me pause you 1
others
second.
in the
That's
same way.
Let me cut this to you. I don't know if when you came up with the idea of, thank you, I don't know when you came up with the idea of Liberland, that DAOs were such a hot topic. I don't know if metaverse was such a hot topic. To what extent does the point Marco's making about self-sovereignty and individual choice and operating as a DAO interface with your plans now?
Well, the whole Liberland will be a DAO and it will have a jurisdiction over its members, right? So that way it actually is a country, because what I believe, when I understand your points, Marco, that Liberland is in a way a step back from a ideal self-sovereign society. But on the other hand, it is a form of reputation system. It is a way how to bring accountability back. It is a way where you can actually prove you're a member of some sort of society. And right now, yes, you have your Bitcoin. If you are a hacker, you steal 1,000 Bitcoins, there is no way basically to get them back by the society. But if you will be member of Liberland, there will be a way to push people to become accountable. But I think the key here is to have a very good, very libertarian constitution, which doesn't mess up the property rights if unnecessary. And I think that's the key here. But I also understand that these systems over the time always basically go wrong. But I just hope that with Liberland, it will last a couple hundred of years before it does.
Well, there's a famous expression, hope is not a strategy. So maybe this will evolve a bit. Now, the funny thing is, before this panel, I did ask the panelists to provide me with some sample questions. And Marco provided me with a sample question. He said, is self-sovereign reputation a solution or a trap leading us back to institutions? And I guess I'll start the fight. I mean, if we're governing ourselves in these sort of DAO-like systems, and we're giving some people more voice than others based on their prior performance, i.e. their reputation, is that sort of a centralizing force that will eventually break apart the idea of sovereignty? And Nacho.
Yeah, this is me.
Yeah.
I'm not Jordi anymore. So let me react again to the self-sovereign approach to the original debate, because I fully concur with all that has been said. The problem is that for you to be able to interact in society, you need to be recognized as an entity. So I love the idea of American transcendentalism, which, by the way, is one of the philosophical basis of this idea that you have the right to opt in. But at the end of the day, if I'm really self-sovereign, but Jordi would not recognize me in a relationship, it doesn't work. So probably we should again separate the use cases, for instance, where highly regulated environments, where we need to heighten the level of assurance, with other cases. For instance, in liquid democracy, it is possible that just with an pseudonymous identifier, I can be able to act and I can be able to recognize as a pseudonymous party giving my opinion. So there are some use cases where it is easier to go for this pure SSI approach, where you rely on technology, and probably here we have the discussion again about which is the role of the state, ensuring that crypto is good crypto, that tokens are good tokens, and these sort of things, that hardware is certified as secure. But still, if you don't have anything like this, you still can vote, you still can participate in a process because you are being recognized, for instance, based in reputation. Problem with reputation and problem with algorithmic state governance is that someone needs to set up the rules. And if the rules are discriminatory, then you still have a problem. And you have a lot of self-sovereign subjects that are being discriminated by an algorithm. So there is a lot of things we need to discuss if we want this to work.
Interesting.
I want to just clarify one thing, because I think it's important. On top, so you can define the rules you want. And this is the nice thing of blockchains. You can define the rules, even you can define rules to change the rules, and that's fine. But in order for this to happen, what really enforces the blockchain is that once you define the rules, you don't break the rules. And this is why we need this bottom layer, this technological layer where cryptography, where math is guaranteed. And this is the cool thing, that once you define the rules, even the same people that define the rules cannot break it. And this is what gives confidence on the system. This is why it's so important to define the base layer that's apolitical, if you want. It's just a protocol. It's just a technical thing. It's a math that actually you can do specific pieces. They don't care if the claim that you are doing is, giving a title or just giving an opinion on whatever. It's just a single bytes that are in some blockchain somewhere, and that's it. It's absolutely acceptable. And this basic layer is fundamental to build all the tops here. And of course, legality is very important, because legality is what can give these rules. So what can, just what can be what the people can accept these rules, because that. But legality also needs, and they need these properties of the cryptography just to guarantee that actually it gives much better warranties than current systems that are based in trusted parties and all together. So this is the main point where we are. And defining self-sovereign identity at this point is very much about first defining these basic protocols, these basic layers, and then is the adoption, is how we implement that in a practical way. And I think you made a very good point on the real problems that there are just implementing self-sovereign identity. There is a lot of work to do, and this is the way to move forward.
Gordon, if I can just try to reply to your question. You were, what we are doing in Liberland, that the taxes are voluntary, and whenever you pay more taxes, you get merit. So there is this element that you kind of mentioned that could break things apart, because the more merits you have, the more reputation you have, the more say you have who's going to be sitting in the Congress. But on the other hand, we actually do have a democratic element. So one citizenship, one vote, and in a Swiss type of approach, we allow the citizens to get rid of any law that the government puts together. So we're trying through our political system to keep these two things in balance. We call it a double democracy, where the whole thing is governed by the merits, by this reputation system. But on the other hand, the whole government is tied by the fact that any law or any decision can be repealed by the citizens by the majority vote.
So in the moment, good points, thank you. In the moments we have left, I want to talk about the metaverse. The metaverse, to me, to be honest, it makes me nervous. It feels like a corporate matrix that it's going to be the reality that's full of our eyes. And when we're talking about a self-sovereign identity, I don't need Agent Smith telling me I'm Mr. Anderson when I'm really Neo. Okay. And does this concept of self-sovereign identity, I mean, I think it's mostly a corporate idea. We're talking about our Facebook identity. We're talking about our Gmail identity. We're talking about these disparate platforms. I hear less government. I hear more corporate. How does, in the 1 minute we have left, how does the concept of self-sovereign identity work in a corporate metaverse?
Well, that's a very good question, and we are also dealing with it right now. We're 2 weeks away from launching Liberland Metaverse, which is literally an urban planning tool for the whole country. So everybody, investors, citizens, will be able to run around in Liberland in a virtual reality space. And we do have this big question now: how much should we actually tie it to this blockchain and to this governance that we are building? And it's not an easy task, right? There are a lot of technological challenges in tying the metaverse to our governance system.
If I may.
And please.
Yes, Mark.
First, metaverse. Oh my God, who's getting suckered? We are. Anybody who believes the metaverse or Facebook has a clue what they're talking about. Yeah, no. But we're not really talking about identity. Identity is not what this is about. Self-sovereignty doesn't rely on identity. The rest of the world wants you to have an identity. You don't have to, but that's, again, self-sovereignty. Do what you will. What's required is accountability. There are no rules. In a world where everyone is self-sovereign, anarchy applies. In fact, if you look up the definition of anarchy, you'll see it does apply. It means there are no rulers. Doesn't mean there are no rules, just that there are no rulers. I've had this debate actually yesterday at lunch with Luke Stokes. It's an entertaining little debate to have, but it's about accountability. As long as you can set up contracts with the people you interact with day to day, and that the history of your conduct with those contracts, whatever they are, I bought a Starbucks, I bought a car, I bought a house, whatever. As long as the contracts are immutable and your performance on those contracts are immutable, you have what everybody else says is identity. What you have is an actual track record of how well you perform as a party to deal with. And you don't need to now walk up and say, hi, my name is Mark Annabelli and I'm from Britain. No, that's immaterial. You can call me Fred, because it doesn't really matter what my name is as far as you're concerned. Oh, and here's my history of credibility and accountability. Now, do you want to do a deal with me or not?
I always want to do a deal with Marco. Okay, but I'm gonna bring it back. Metaverse, this kind of corporate sprawling, whatever the heck it is. Does the concept of self-sovereign identity apply? And what do we do with it?
Me, self-sovereignty, I repeat, it's a protocol. It can be used for defining reputation systems, for defining metaverse. Just define the rule you want, define the application you want, and you will use the identity basic layer.
You're deliberately stealing clear from the application layer, and just it's an infrastructure.
Exactly. Identity is an infrastructure point. It's an infrastructure layer. It's not an application layer.
It's 3D Facebook.
Lovely. Okay, on
Says
that
it all.
note, everyone, I think we are out of our time. Big round of applause for our panel. Our panelists there.
Thank you.
And to all of you again for being here.
Thank you.